conclusion, I'd like to just quickly summarize and say that we need to comply with international protocols and international legislation, and therefore ethnobotanical knowledge is important to fully comply with the aims and ambitions of those conventions. We need to engage and empower local communities to record their precious knowledge for future generations, and to make sure that the younger generation remains interested in the ways of the past. There's an aeroplane going overhead, so I'm just... Then the third aspect is encouraging sustainable use through education and active participation. And this can be done through these conferences and interactions with local communities and the feedback process. And then documenting high quality data for potential future socioeconomic development. We need to know the details. Is the plant safe? How is it used? How is it processed? All the details are important. Gaining knowledge about traditional uses, gaining knowledge about traditional taboos associated with sustainable harvesting, and then basically preserving precious knowledge about nature for future generations. So I hope that you have gained some insights into the way we do it in South Africa, and perhaps also the way that it should be done by everyone. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will ask the public if there are some questions. Tenemos preguntas. Please, Victor. So vamos a hacerlas en inglés primero para que comprenda y para traducirlas, ¿sí? Entonces, so we will do the questions in English so that you can follow them, but also we will translate them in Spanish for people here.
First, thank you for your conference, and I realize you got more than 24 years of research in this topic, but also it was very interesting to know that your work is also applying in the regulation, in the national regulations. In terms of that, there is a biological protection very clear now. The question is, it's also included in the process to protect the molecular information. Is possible people is also from your data, from your plants that you know, with all the information, for example, stomach aches or back pains, all of that should be used in terms for the pharmaceutical products. So that's the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood, but perhaps I can just ask, did you ask me if the molecular aspects of the plants should also be protected?
Yeah.
Yes, and of course, that is the whole idea of this legislation. As I explained, that in South Africa, we distinguish two phases. We distinguish between the discovery phase of, for example, chemical studies of plants. And then we have also a bioprospecting phase. And the two phases are different in the sense that if you are a scientist and your only ambition is to publish a paper on, let's say, new chemical compounds of a plant, then you do not have to have a permit. You do not have to go through the whole process of applying for a permit, etc. Obviously, to collect the plants, you need a permit, right? To make sure that you don't destroy nature and so on. So there's some permits required for for collecting plants and even for transporting them across provincial boundaries and so on. But you don't need a permit for bioprospecting. As soon as your aim with your work is to make a product or to start selling things, then you need a permit, and then the requirements are very strict. And I think this is a sensible distinction, because many scientists, they don't care, they don't want to make money, they are curiosity driven. They want to publish a paper, they want to learn more about nature and about chemical variation and so on. For example, chemosystematics is still quite an active topic. So in South Africa, it's only when you aspire to make money out of a particular project, then you are obliged to follow the rules. Does that answer the question?
Thank you, Ben. There is another question. Thank you for this question. I think it is very important to regulate also the uses of knowledge internationally and nationally also, to push governments to regulate this kind of things. There is another question. Please, Cecilia.
Hello, sorry for my English. I have some question. For example, in Isla de Juárez here in the Sierra Norte, we have a very serious problem because the new generation have lost the knowledge of traditional use. What do you recommend in this case, for example, for us, for research to do in this case? Because this area is very important in Mexico and in the world. It's very, very, very rich in endemism and traditional use. What do you recommend for us?
Well, if the knowledge is lost, it's lost, right?
Yes.
And it can never be regained. But maybe you can consider putting more effort into trying to locate people with traditional knowledge. Very often, the knowledgeable people in a village or in a community are not the ones that play politics and that's in the forefront. They are usually hidden, well hidden somewhere. And very often I have discovered, for example, I go to Van Reinsdorp, let's say it's a town in South Africa, and I ask around and I say, oh goodness, all the knowledge is lost. Everyone I talk to, and then suddenly someone tells me, but listen, there's a guy staying there outside the village in his little house there. Maybe you should speak to him. And then I go there and then I see the most wonderful information. So maybe one must just make sure that the knowledge is not lost. And that's not an easy thing to do, because you have to theoretically at least talk to everyone to make sure that you do not have individuals in the community that's still very knowledgeable. I think it's possible. You're just like, I became a professor because I'm interested in plants, right? And so you do have people in rural areas that are, from a young age, are particularly interested in plants and in biology, nature, whatever. And maybe you have a chance to still recover something if you can just discover the right people. I hope so. I hold my thumbs for you. But if it's lost, it's lost. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have other question. I have curiosity because you say that 60% of the species of cave are endemic.
Yeah.
How many of these species are or have used traditional knowledge? Do you know this exactly, or
Kalina, help me a little bit. Did I hear correctly?
Yes.
I couldn't hear well, but she's asked me if I have knowledge about the endemic species.
No.
The uses of endemic species.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, it is that one.
Yes.
It's the uses of endemic species. No?
Yeah.
yes.
The uses of endemic species.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's very clear. We have such high levels of endemism in South Africa that practically, well, many of the endemic species are used. So if you look at South African flora in general, then I think the level of endemism is about 70%. In the Cape Fynbos, it's about 60% or so. And you have many, even commercialized plants that are endemic to the Cape. Rooibos tea, for example, famous tea, endemic to the Cape. Honeybush tea, endemic to the Cape. Puchu, endemic to the Cape, and so on. So no, there are many endemic species that are linked to traditional knowledge and to traditional uses. But what you are asking raises an important question, and I'm going to follow up now. I think you are clever by asking this question, because one can now compare. Is the percentage of endemic species lower or higher than the general species? Are more endemic species used than normal species or not? It has not yet been made. I don't think there's a difference. I think to find out and make sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I don't know if there's another question, but maybe I don't know. There is some need to translate. Or we can continue in English without any problem.
Buenos días. En mi comunidad no tenemos como esa cultura de la conservación, ¿no? Etnobotánica. Entonces, mi pregunta sería, ¿cómo podríamos iniciar o inculcar esta parte, ¿no?
Cuéntale un poquito de tu comunidad.
La comunidad se llama Gelatado de Juárez, es acá abajo, aquí en la comunidad. Gelatado de Juárez. Así es. Sí, y bueno, sí existen pensamientos de pobladores, ¿no? Que sí tienen ese interés, sin embargo, no es masivo, ¿no? Entonces, ¿cómo podríamos despertar este interés de conservar esta parte? Gracias.
No, gracias. So Ben, there is a young guy here in the public who is from Gelatao. Gelatao is a town close to Ixtlan, and it is a place for Mexican people important, historically important, because it is the birthplace of one of the most famous presidents of Mexico, Benito Juárez, and it is very, very known, Gelatao, Oaxaca. And he's asking us, he's a little bit worried because in this place, he has the idea that people is not really knowing biodiversity, is not really, the knowledge, the botanical knowledge is very, very low. And he's asking how to do, which strategy we can do to improve the knowledge of people, the botanical knowledge of people in Gelatao. What do you think?
Yeah, you mean improve the recorded, the records of knowledge, or improve the local people's knowledge about nature? Because there's two different things. You can record the knowledge, to try to record everything, and try to find people with a lot of knowledge to summarize it and to record it. You can also try to inspire the people to become more aware of how important and how precious such information is. And so that can be done through schools, for example, so that children ask the grandmother, please, grandmother, tell us how you use this plant and that plant, so that you generate a general interest and a general enthusiasm for traditional knowledge. I don't know if it's the same in Mexico, but in South Africa, rural people often feel that their knowledge about plants is not important. It's just, it's too simple to consider. It's not of interest to anyone else. And it takes a scientist or an enthusiast to point out to them how important that information is, and that it is worthwhile to keep it and to look after it and to record it for posterity. So maybe that is one approach. So I'm also involved with another academic. He's an educator. He's now at the University of Western Cape. And we have a project where we teach the teachers on how to incorporate indigenous knowledge into the school curriculum, and to inspire school children to become aware of traditional knowledge, and to develop. And amongst those, you will probably find future professors and future academics who has a natural interest in plants and in knowledge about plants. So I think the education aspect is really very important. So I think it's a matter of communicating with local people and trying to still find people with knowledge. It's often the older people that has the knowledge. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
Yes, I will ask. Bueno, él plantea que hay dos situaciones posibles, ¿no? Una donde realmente no hay ningún conocimiento, pero eso en realidad él considera que no es muy posible, que seguramente hay gente que tiene conocimiento. Entonces, si es así, la idea es comunicarse con esa gente y tratar de que ellos compartan el conocimiento con las nuevas generaciones a través de pláticas, escuelas, de reconocer a la gente que conoce, ¿no? Que tiene ese conocimiento etnobotánico, reconocerla, ¿sí? Y tratar pues, primero que lo comente, que lo comunique con las nuevas generaciones, pero también tratar de generar publicación, libros, ¿no? Se quede el conocimiento, que el conocimiento vaya también pues siendo documentado, ¿no? Eso es la propuesta, la estrategia que te propone. Él no considera que realmente, igual que le contestó a la doctora, que no es una pérdida total. Seguramente hay gente que tiene conocimiento etnobotánico, entonces esa gente hay que precisamente buscarla, ¿no? Tratar de aprovechar ese conocimiento y que sea capaz de transmitirlo a las nuevas generaciones, ¿no? Gracias por tu pregunta. Víctor, había otra pregunta.
Kalina, may I ask a question, please?
Yes, where are you? Who are you?
I'm in South Carolina.
Robbie.
Yes, how are you doing?
Hello, Robbie. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. But I have a statement to make to the gentleman, please. And I appreciate your project and all. And I want to say one of the things I work with about a half a dozen of the first peoples of Mesoamerica. And I'll be talking about an education project here in a few minutes. But what I want to tell you is that one of the ways I like to talk about these other ecological knowledge systems is that, whereas Europeans, they only have a few hundred years of what we really call peer review, whereas our indigenous sisters and brothers have 1,000 generations of peer review, teaching them everything they need to know to operate properly in these ecosystems. And I just wanted to throw that out there at you and tell you that I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Robbie. So Robbie will have a presentation of a book. The next, I think, at which hour is your presentation? 10:15?
10:15 is 10:15. Is it in this room or another?
I didn't get it. Excuse me.
Yeah, at 10:15 in just a few minutes.
Yes, exactly, in a few minutes.
Will it be here or do I need to go someplace else?
Yeah. So the problem is that we have a simultaneous another event, the symposium, and it will be not very easy to be everywhere.
Okay, mil gracias por todos.
But it is very nice that you are here because you heard already Ben is also working for this knowledge, this ethnobotanical knowledge, and also you with your book and with your projects. Thank you, Robbie. No sé si hay otra pregunta, otro comentario, por favor.
Sí, sobre el protocolo de Nagoya, dos preguntas derivadas. Uno, si el protocolo de Nagoya ha contribuido al avance de la etnobiología. Segunda, en la práctica, ¿qué?
Ben, there is a very, very interesting question here.
Yes.
About the Nagoya Protocol.
Yeah.
The question is if you think that the Nagoya Protocol was really it was
Improving the biology
Im-
knowledge.
yeah, improving the biological or ethnobotanical knowledge. If there is really a link or a correlation between the protocol, the Nagoya Protocol, and the progress more than improvement, progress of ethnobotanical knowledge or knowledge about biodiversity in general more.
Yes, Kalina, I'm very skeptical about the Nagoya Protocol, because if the Nagoya Protocol is properly implemented, and why should it not be retroactively implemented, then Mexicans would probably be some amongst the richest people in the world. I think also if we can get a few cents per kilogram for coffee, then Ethiopia will look completely different to what it is looking at the moment. So in my opinion, it is a very good idea that people should be compensated for the use of their resources and so on. But there are quite a number of practical difficulties. For example, in Southern Africa, you have an exchange of information between cultures. You cannot link the use of a particular plant to a particular culture. Why? Because the intellectuals of the different cultures would take care to go to other cultures and to other regions and improve their knowledge, just like we go on conferences, international conferences. So people in former times, rural people in former times, the intellectuals, the illiterate intellectuals of the past, made exchanges with other intellectuals in other cultures. And so the source of the information is not clear. So now there's a material transfer agreement between a particular group or a tribe, if you like, but the knowledge actually came from another one. In Africa, it's also problematic because many of our plants also occur in East Africa and in Southern Africa, in Namibia or in Botswana. And so while the regulations are applied in South Africa, bioprospectors may choose to get the information and their resources from another country. So I think in summary, it's a very good idea to compensate people for their resources or for their knowledge, but one should not create false expectations, for one. And I think in many cases it's totally impractical to try to link a particular group of people to a particular plant, because often it has to be artificial. You have to choose some community to benefit, but many communities actually use the plant. So it becomes a little bit unscientific, I would say. So I'm not sure if the Nagoya Protocol has actually promoted the recording of information. I think it may even have done damage, because are hesitant. People are now do not feel free to share because they think maybe knowledge can be used to make money and so on. So then you start having secrecy, and if you want to kill science, you have to start dealing with secrets. Because why do we publish in science? We publish because we want to make it known to the world. It's the cornerstones of science is being open and being honest and not being secretive. And now you are sort of encouraging people to keep secrets. So I always in my work tell people, please do not burden me with your secrets. I don't want your secret. I don't like your secret. If it's a secret, it's a secret. Then keep it for yourself. Don't even mention it. See? Yeah, so, Dan Moorman, who was the president, he was the editor of Economic Botany in South Africa at our conference. He said, secrecy sucks. That's now an American expression to say secrecy sucks. In science, we don't deal with secrets. No, never. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So, Mario, do you want to discuss a little bit about Está ligada. Okay. So it was another question, but it is related to this one you were already answering. ¿Alguna otra pregunta, comentario con respecto al conocimiento etnobotánico, a lo que estuvo platicando el doctor, a sus propias comunidades? So I only to tell you, we are actually in Oaxaca, and Oaxaca, it is really a mix between high biodiversity and also high diversity, cultural diversity. There is a region in Mexico where you can find really both in very high level. So, and it is really interesting to see how people is, I think the knowledge, the botanical knowledge in Oaxaca is surely also very high. And so maybe we have to do something here, Ben, to work here also with the communities, to use your indexes of knowledge, know the knowledge of people. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if there is, excuse me, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's this the systematic way in which we record data that is more valuable. It's not so much the index, but the way in which we prepare this flip file, and where we make sure that we cover all the plants of a particular region. That's a lot of work to do, and I think that's why people would shy away from it. But I think, you know, Kalina, to me, indigenous knowledge is like a beautiful flower. You put it in a pot in your house, you look at the flower, you appreciate the flower, and maybe we appreciate the flower because we know soon it will die. It's only temporary. And some days I feel like that about our precious indigenous knowledge, is that we appreciate it so much because we know that we have already lost a large part of it, probably, and that we will probably still lose a lot of it. And that we try desperately to keep the flower alive by recording information about the flower. That's how I feel about it.
It's romantic. Nice, nice, Ben. So in Zoom or in other in virtual in the net, so we have some questions, other questions. Do you see some other questions? No? Ah, okay, excuse me. No, there are no more questions. Ben, thank you another time for your conference. It was very successful. Yeah, thank you. And see you soon here in Mexico. We are.
Yes, next week, Kalina, next week.
Next week, yes. Yeah.
Next week.
It's true, yeah, next week.
Great.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Right. So I can leave now, right, Kalina?
Yeah.
Right.
You can leave now. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Pues muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí, por las interesantes preguntas.
porque yo no llevaba la música, no llevaba el...